The birth of Champa. In the beginning, there was the sea, and the mountains, and the restless wind that carried ships from a distant land called India. Ships heavy not only with spices, but with stories, gods, and dreams. Upon the central coast of what is now Vietnam, between the rugged Trong Son Range and the emerald South China Sea, those winds brought something that would change the fate of an entire people. The ancient inhabitants of this land were the Sa Huyn, coastal traders and farmers whose jars held secrets of bronze, glass, and fire. But as the monsoon tides brought foreign sails to their horizon, new ideas began to arrive. Sanskrit words, Hindu rituals, the concept of kingship bound to divinity. From this meeting of worlds, of Austronesian roots and Indian soul, the kingdom of Champa was born. The first name whispered by history is Simhapura, the Lion City. Founded in the 2nd century, here, on the banks of the Tu Bon River, a new vision of civilization emerged. Temples rose to Shiva, the destroyer and creator, to Vishnu, the preserver of worlds, and to Devi, the mother of all. Priests from the West chanted hymns from the Vedas, while local shamans blended them with mountain spirits and sea gods. This was not imitation. It was transformation. The Chams did not borrow India's faith. They wove it into their own soil. Stone became divine flesh. Brick became prayer. At the sacred valley of Mi Son, deep within the jungles of Quang Nam, they built sanctuaries unlike any others in Southeast Asia. No mortar held them. Each brick fused by fire and mystery. Each carving alive with motion, Shiva dancing eternally, Brahma's faces gazing from every wall, Apsaras floating in the twilight of incense smoke. These temples were not monuments. They were living hearts of the kingdom, beating with the rhythm of faith and flame. By the 4th century, Champa had grown powerful. Its kings bore Sanskrit names, Bhadravarman, Rudravarman, Gangaraja, and ruled as Devaraja, god kings whose thrones mirrored the cosmos. From Simhapura in the north to Vijaya and Kauthara in the south, a chain of cities flourished. Trade flowed like lifeblood: ivory, silk, sandalwood, gold. The Chams became masters of the sea, warriors and poets guided by the stars and the monsoon winds. At Po Nagar, the great temple of Na Trang, they worshipped Yan Po Nagar, goddess of land and sea, both native and divine. She was the spirit of Champa itself, born from the soil, crowned by heaven. Through her, the kingdom found its soul. By the 8th and 9th centuries, Champa stood among the luminous civilizations of Asia, a bridge between India and China, between mountain and ocean. Priests recited Sanskrit beneath palm trees. Sailors carried bronze and faith across the waves. And in the jungles, artisans shaped gods with hands that remembered the earth. Yet, every dawn hides the shadow of dusk. For beyond the mountains, the Khmer and the Vietnamese were rising. And Champa, radiant and proud, stood between them, unaware that its golden age was already beginning to fade. the age of glory and war. The sound of conch shells once announced kings. By the 10th century, it was the sound of drums and swords. The Golden Age had become an age of fire. In the year 982, the northern kingdom of Đại Việt, led by the warrior king Lê Huan, marched south. Indrapura burned, palaces turned to ash, libraries destroyed, the king slain. Survivors fled south, carrying statues and sacred scrolls. From their exile rose a new capital, Vijaya, a fortress of resilience. From Vijaya, they rebuilt. Temples rose again, Po Nagar restored, Po Klaungarai reborn. Ships once more crossed the sea. Cham mariners, proud, fearless, their prows cutting through the surf like blades of light. They traded with China and India, even the distant Abbasid Caliphate. Gold flowed, knowledge flourished. But peace was a lie. The Khmer Empire to the west watched with envy. The Vietnamese to the north sharpened their swords. Yet Champa refused to kneel. Its kings wore crowns shaped like flames. Its priests believed the gods themselves guarded their towers. The 11th and 12th centuries became an age of brilliance. Cham sculpture reached divine beauty. Gods smiling with human tenderness. Dancers frozen mid-motion. Scholars wrote poetry in 2 languages, Sanskrit and Cham, singing of duty, love, and impermanence. They knew all glory fades. But still, they created, as if to defy time itself. Then came 1177, a year the world would never forget. Cham fleets, led by Jaya Indravarman IV, sailed up the Mekong River and struck Angkor itself. The unimaginable happened. The capital of the Khmer Empire fell to the Chams. The river turned red, temples looted, statues torn from sanctuaries. For a brief, blazing moment, the Chams ruled the mightiest city in the region. But victory, like fire, consumes itself. Jayavarman VII, a Buddhist warrior, rose from defeat. His vengeance was swift, merciless, divine. Khmer armies swept into Champa. Thousands slain, thousands enslaved. Their sorrow carved forever into the stone faces of Bayonne. The glory of Champa began to crumble. Yet even in ruin, the Chams endured. They survived with cunning and courage. They bowed when they must, struck when they could. When Kublai Khan sent Mongol envoys demanding submission, the Chams smiled and prepared for war. The Mongol fleets came, but storms tore them apart. The jungle itself became Cham ally, mud, rain, and silence devouring the invaders. When the monsoon cleared, the Mongols were gone. Champa still stood, smaller, wounded, but unbroken. Through it all, their temples still rose like prayers made of brick. At Mison, at Po Nagar, the incense burned, the bells rang. They built not just for the gods, but against forgetting. Each tower whispered, "We are still here." The fall and legacy of Champa. The end of Champa did not come in a single night. It came like erosion, slow, inevitable, merciless. In the 14th century, Đại Việt marched southward, step by step, town by town. The Nam Tien, the southern advance, had begun, and the flame of Champa flickered. In 1471, under Emperor Lê Thánh Tông, the final blow fell. The armies of Đại Việt surrounded Vijaya. For days, the sky burned red. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but ruin. 40,000 were killed, 30,000 enslaved. The red towers glowed like dying embers in the ashes of their own empire. The kingdom of Champa was gone. But a people cannot vanish if they remember who they are. In the far south, in Panduranga, a remnant survived. They called it the Last Kingdom. They farmed, traded, and prayed. Some embraced Islam through Malay traders. Others clung to the old Hindu gods. Two faiths, one people, bound by loss. Their towers still stood. Po Klong Garai, Po Rome, rising like defiance against time. Red brick spires piercing the sky, glowing at sunset as if aflame. Even now they stand, silent, sacred. Centuries passed, empires came and went. The Chams endured, scattered across Vietnam, Cambodia, and the Malay world. Their language still whispers on the wind. Their songs still tell of gods and oceans. In their festivals, dancers still become apsaras, bodies of memory moving through time. The ruins of My Son, rediscovered by the French, became the final witness. Bombed in war, swallowed by jungle, yet unbroken. Walk there at dawn, when mist clings to the ground and sunlight strikes the stone. You will feel it, the pulse beneath the earth, the breath of a kingdom that refuses to die. The story of Champa is not just a story of conquest and fall. It is the story of endurance, of beauty that outlives empire, of faith that defies oblivion. Because though their towers crumble, their spirit does not. History forgets kingdoms, but never the ones who loved beauty enough to carve eternity from stone. The Chams left behind no empire, only echoes. But those echoes, they still sing. And so, when the wind moves through the red towers of My Son, listen closely. You might still hear it. The heartbeat of Champa. Faint, eternal, whispering through the centuries. Champa never fell. It only became the silence between the waves.